Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan. Hey, I apologize for the lack of uploads like all of last week. I was battling the flu all week and it was like, man, it crushed me. I was down and out for the entire week. Couldn't taste, couldn't smell, none of that. So excited to be on the mend. I'm not 100%, but I'm like 90%. And I can smell and I can taste again. And that's what matters. And today I'm going to be trying something that is completely outside of my wheelhouse. 100% outside of my wheelhouse. It is a very good Armagnac. Or at least I'm told it's very good, but I don't know anything about Armagnac. I know very limited amounts of information about Armagnac. Basically, my understanding is that Armagnac, I mean, it's a distilled wine, but in comparison to cognac, which is something I'm a little more familiar with, but in comparison to cognac, it's cognac is pot stilled, but Armagnac was originally designed to be something that was being distilled on the go, you know, as farmers were hopping around and distilling the wines that they were getting their hands on. And they would use these sort of smaller portable column stills that only had about like 15 or so plates in them. And it would yield a consistency. The way that it was described to me would be like the difference between a traditional sweet white wine and an ice wine, where the ice wine is going to be thicker, more viscous and syrupy and sweeter. And that's what Armagnac is described as being in comparison to cognac. So I'm expecting some thicker, fruitier viscosity out of it. Now this particular Armagnac was sent in to me by Jeff. So a big shout out to Jeff. Thank you so much for the sample. I appreciate it, my friend. This is from L'Incantada, who's developed quite a reputation from my understanding. And this Armagnac is 33 years old. It was apparently distilled in my birth year of 1988. I don't know if that's a good year, but people always say, oh, it was a very good year. I don't know if that was. I don't know. Just something people say. This comes in at 105 proof, by the way. 105 proof. And it was picked by the folks over at r/bourbon. So I'm excited to dive into this because bourbon is my wheelhouse. Whiskey is my wheelhouse. Armagnac, distilled wines, very much not so. So we will see. Does a bourbon lover get down with this? Is this something I can vibe with? Let's find out. I'm going to treat it much like a bourbon in terms of how I go about the process here. I'll give it a little visual inspection. We'll nose it, and then we'll taste it and offer some tasting notes. It does look pretty thick and viscous. It's leaving like these nice long runs coming down the side of the glass. Nice thick rim up there. The color is, I mean, it's very dark. You know, spent 33 years in a barrel. I imagine it's going to be pretty dark in color. Although this wouldn't be like a charred oak barrel or anything like that. My assumption is that this would have just been placed in a traditional wine cask. So it's not quite the same as like barrel influence would be on a whiskey, because our coopering process is much different for whiskey and bourbon. A little bit of a red hue to it as well. Great mahogany note. Let's nose it. Holy cow, that's like fresh strawberry shortcake on the nose. It is very thick and potent too. Like taking a deep draw actually gives me like this tickle sensation right in the back of my olfactory. It's like I'm about to like sneeze or something. Or that little tickle you get back there when you just swallow like a full spoonful of icing or something and you get that sweet tingle in the back of your mouth there. That's what that's like, just on the nose. It reminds me a lot of like a port, like a really rich wine on the nose. Yeah, port and strawberry shortcake. It's a lot, right? It's a lot on the nose. There's nothing subtle about it. You know, on the nose, it reminds me of like, there's the bottle that I used to get a lot, and I forget the name of the winery, but they did a blackberry bramble, and that bottle was super thick and viscous and syrupy, but man, it had this great tart quality to it, very sweet. I loved that bottle. And on the nose, it reminds me of that blackberry bramble. And that smell you get when you just fresh rip open a bag of Skittles. All right, let's try it. Okay, that's going to be a sipper. I wasn't expecting to get hit so hard with all that flavor. Like my bourbon, I can take a nice big swig of it, kind of swish it around a bit, chew on it a bit, and start pulling out all these flavors. The second that thing hit my palate, it was like, wha-bam! It was not polite. It was kind of like when maybe somebody's at the door and you go to the door and you open it just a crack, and your dog goes blasting through and shoves you out of the way, shoves the door out of the way. And it's like, I'm going through. That's what this just did to me. I opened the door a crack and it came barging on through. It tastes like wine and bourbon had a baby. There is a ton of oak on this. It is like if you were to have maybe taken, this is what I picture. I'm thinking of like a mortar and pestle. And in that bowl, I put some blackberries and some fresh strawberries and maybe some raisins. And I just crushed them all up. And then I took that sort of juicy, pureed, mush of fruit, and I slathered it across like a plank of oak. And that's what this is to me. This is like all those fruits kind of meshed into one. They're tart and they're sweet, but it's right in there with all the sort of vanilla oak tannins that you get, which I'm assuming can only come from 33 years in contact with oak. Yeah, I think those are the three like predominant notes for me. Would be the vanilla, which comes from the oak, the vanillins that are extracted from the wood. That tannic oaky barrel funk as well from the 33 years in there. And then all those crushed up fruits, the blackberries, strawberries, and grapes / raisins, just smushed up together into this great puree of fruit slathered across that oak. Yeah, I can see why someone would get down with this. I don't know if I noted this before. This is like a $200+ bottle. It is not cheap. That's like up there with whiskey big dogs, $200 price tag. Man, that is something else. Well, if r/bourbon, Take and the guys ever do another barrel pick of Lancantata Armagnac, maybe keep an eye out for that. That might definitely be your jam. And I say jam because it's pretty jammy. Hey, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing this with me. I appreciate you. This is very generous. You've been very kind to me. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, would you do me a favor and consider leaving a like on it? This is the best free way to support the content here on YouTube. And a big shout out to my Patreon supporters who send in samples for me and help fund all the bottles that we get to pick up and review here on the channel. I'm very grateful for your support. Cheers, my friends. May you live richly and get better with age. And I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.